Hello, hope you're doing well, and welcome to my SMITE 2 Anubis guide. The god of the dead has emerged from the underworld ready to mummify his enemies and drain their very life force. If you're looking for a character that melts opponents with relentless damage and sustains himself through lifesteal, then Anubis is the perfect choice for you. Anubis is a ranged magical nuker with an emphasis on lockdown, burst damage, and self-sustain. His lifesteal and defensive passive allow him to survive fights while dealing immense magical damage over time. However, his lack of mobility means positioning is critical to his success. And in this video, I'm going to teach you absolutely everything you need to know to master this deadly god. As always, don't forget to subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss my future SMITE 2 guides, as I'll be covering all of the characters in SMITE 2. Also, check out my Discord server if you have any questions or want to join a friendly, toxic-free SMITE community. Now let's dive into Anubis' abilities. Anubis' passive is the Scales. As his health declines, he gains increased lifesteal, physical protection, and magical protection. This means that the lower health he gets, the harder he is to kill, which pairs perfectly with his lifesteal heavy playstyle. At maximum stacks, his lifesteal is tripled, making him one of the most self-sustained mages in the game. His first ability is Plague of Locusts. When activated, Anubis channels a swarm of locusts in a cone in front of him, dealing continuous magical damage over time. While channeling, he is displacement immune, but his movement speed is heavily reduced, meaning you need to position carefully before using it. This is one of his primary sources of damage, especially in close quarter fights. Next is Mummify, Anubis' second ability. He fires a bandage projectile in a straight line, stunning the first enemy god hit. This ability is crucial for setting up his combos and ensuring your abilities land. Since it ignores minions, it's a great tool for catching enemies off guard in the middle of fights. Anubis' third ability is Grasping Hands. He summons ghostly hands from the underworld, dealing damage over time in an area while also slowing enemies' hit. The ability is fantastic for zoning, wave clear, and setting up kills. Since it hits multiple times, it pairs well with his lifesteal, allowing him to heal significantly while dealing consistent damage. And finally, Anubis' ultimate ability is Death Gaze. When activated, Anubis channels a beam of necrotic energy in a straight line, dealing massive burst damage on impact, followed by continuous ticks of magical damage. While channeling, he is CC immune but remains rooted in place, making the proper positioning essential. If used correctly, Death Gaze can completely erase enemies from existence. Now that you understand Anubis' abilities, let's cover how to best make use of them in combos. Anubis has two primary combos, both of which revolve around locking enemies down and unleashing massive damage. The first combo starts with Grasping Hands, followed by Mummify, and then Plague of Locusts. Grasping Hands slows your target, making it easier to land Mummify, which stuns them in place. Once they're immobilized, you can safely channel Plague of Locusts to deal huge damage while healing from lifesteal. The second combo is an all-in burst sequence, replacing Plague of Locusts with Death Gaze. Start with Grasping Hands to slow your target, land Mummify to stun them, and then immediately channel Death Gaze to melt them down with one of the highest damaging ultimates in the game. This combo guarantees maximum burst damage, especially against squishier targets. It's important to remember that landing Mummify is key to both combos. If you miss it, your entire chain falls apart, so practice hitting it consistently. If you want to see these combos in action, check out my channel where I've already posted some Anubis gameplay videos that demonstrate these strategies in real matches. And considering following me on Twitch for live gameplay. Now that you know how to play Anubis, let's go over where you should be playing him. Anubis thrives in mid lane thanks to his strong wave clear, burst damage, and zoning tools. His ability to control fights from a distance and sustain himself through lifesteal makes him a powerful presence in lane. However, due to his lack of mobility, he requires good positioning and awareness to avoid getting punished by assassins and ganks. Anubis can work in the jungle thanks to his high burst damage and ability to clear jungle camps quickly. However, his lack of mobility makes ganking risky, as once he commits to a fight, he has no escape tools. If you play him in the jungle, focus on knocking down targets with Mummify and bursting them down before they can react. Anubis lacks the tankiness and sustain needed to survive solo lane trades against bruisier characters. While his wave clear is strong, he struggles in extended fights and can be easily targeted by ganks. And Anubis does not function well in ADC either, as he relies on abilities rather than auto attacks. His lack of mobility and long cooldowns make him an easy target in the dual lane, and his kit doesn't provide the consistent sustained damage that a traditional ADC needs. Anubis offers no hard crowd control outside of Mummify, and his squishy nature makes him a terrible frontliner. He brings no peel, no tankiness, and no utility, all essential traits of a support, so I'd recommend sticking to mid lane or jungle for best results. Now let's talk about how to build Anubis for maximum effectiveness. I can't give you an exact build for Anubis as items in SMITE 2 often go through changes and fall in and out of the meta, but I can tell you which stats to focus on and suggest some core items. Anubis thrives with Intelligence, Lifesteal, and Penetration. For Intelligence, you'll want items like Book of Thoth, Doom Orb, and Dreamer's Idol, which provide massive magical power and help maximize his burst potential. For Lifesteal, consider items like Bloodbound Book, Soul Gem, and Typhon's Fang, all of which enhance his sustain and keep him alive while channeling abilities. And finally, for Penetration, Obsidian Shard, Totem of Death, and Vado Tahuti are all excellent choices, ensuring that he shreds through enemy defenses. Now do remember that these items are just suggestions, as they depend on variables such as your situation, team composition, and enemy team composition. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, items are buffed and nerfed, falling in and out of the meta. That being said, the stats themselves are consistent, so it doesn't really matter which of these items you go for as long as you focus on the stats your character requires. Experiment with different item combinations to find what works best for your playstyle and team composition. Sky's the limit. If you want completed builds, however, feel free to join my Discord server where I or other community members can help you with your builds or any other questions you may have. As I mentioned, if you want some non-toxic friends to play SMITE with, our Discord server is the perfect place for you. And now that you know how to build Anubis, let's cover some tips and tricks to take your gameplay to the next level. Tip number 1 is mastering positioning. Anubis has 0 mobility, making him extremely vulnerable to assassins, crowd control, and burst damage. Always position yourself near walls and away from potential flank routes. If you overextend without beads or defensive items, you're an easy target. Learning how to position properly and stay within range of your support and frontline will greatly increase your survivability. Up next, landing Mummify determines your success. Mummify is your single most important ability for setting up your full damage combo. If you miss it, your damage output drops significantly and you'll be left vulnerable while trying to reposition. Make sure to practice hitting moving targets and try to use it immediately after an enemy is slowed by grasping hand. My third tip is lifesteal items are your best friend. Anubis thrives on lifesteal to keep him alive. The more lifesteal he has, the longer he can sustain while channeling his abilities. If you're against a team with heavy anti-heal, consider building hybrid items with penetration to ensure you still deal significant damage even if healing is reduced. Tip number 4 is to use grasping hands for zoning and not always just for damage. Well-placed grasping hands can completely control an enemy movement, drop it at choke points, jungle paths, and around objectives like Fire Giant to make it difficult for enemies to approach. Even if you don't take the full damage, they will be forced to reposition, giving you and your team an advantage. And finally, be smart with Death Gaze. Anubis' ultimate is incredibly powerful, but since it roots him in place, it can also be his downfall. Use it when you're safe, preferably after an enemy is stunned by Mummify or when they've already been immobilized in a teamfight. Never use it out of desperation unless you're guaranteed a kill, otherwise you'll just make yourself an easy target. And that's it, you've reached the end of my Anubis guide. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out my other SMITE 2 guides and subscribe for more content. If you have any questions, join my Discord for more tips and a friendly community of SMITE players. And finally, follow me on Twitch if you want to watch me play SMITE live or ask any questions directly. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Love you. Bye!